As promised, we are back with Volume 2 of Through Nightmares We March On. Welcome, my beloved friends, to another subreddit spotlight. It is I, Dave Makes Noises, your NPC guide through the illustrious world of D&D Storytime on YouTube. And without any further ado, let us pick up where last we left off. As they ventured into the fell and reached the seal, both the heroes and the majority of Salvation were betrayed by Azrael, who claimed the Mad God's relic and power for his own use. He revealed his "the strong live, the weak die" mentality, and claimed that people will only grow stronger through hardship, pointing to the player's own success as an example. After all, their families survived the Blight, and look at how powerful they themselves are. So now he intends to use the relics to unleash the Blight once more, this time on a multiversal scale. He no longer needs the other relics, as his new dream abilities simply allow him to create copies of them that suit his needs well enough. He just needs to recreate the Blight. This also reveals that only 2 members of Salvation were in on Azrael's real plans. Flora, a dragon-born warlock who craves power above all else with plans of her own, giving Remus a frightening parallel. And Alistair, a tiefling bard who only wants to cause chaos and spread madness. He wields the relic of reality. Azrael leaves everyone paralyzed while he and Flora depart after transforming the latter into a powerful Draco Lich. However, he leaves Elijah free and claims that this was not his fight, as Alistair was from a rival family to his. Alistair reveals that he was the man who killed Elijah's father, and the two duel, but Alistair's relic made him far too powerful, as it allowed him to freely manipulate wild magic. Despite Elijah wielding the power of the life relic, both he and his husband, a monk who opted to join him on this adventure because he was worried about him, were cruelly struck down. As Elijah lay dying as his father's killer made his way towards killing his friends, the god of life appeared before him and offered him a way to win with what became one of the campaign's most iconic lines. "Will you lie back and die another victim, or will you take my hand? Stand up, die like a hero." Elijah stood back up, temporarily ascended to level 20, and his battle with Alistair began anew. It was a close bout, and while Elijah was ultimately victorious, his wounds were too severe, and he died surrounded by friends. He and his husband were buried together, but his spirit remained bound to his sword for a time. Tobias took up his sword to remember his friend by, becoming a hexblade in the process. His old friend remained by his side as his patron. Not long after Cain joined the team, as they came to an agreement with Shiro and the other good members of Salvation, they would work separately towards a common goal: hunting the monsters unleashed by Azrael, tracking down the remaining relics, and becoming strong enough to defeat the now deity-powered Azrael. Over the course of their training, the team discovered countless secrets. Grev learned he was descended from Surtur, and the rightful ruler of the Fire Giants after claiming Surtur's sword, being welcomed back to his home city by his sister, who reveals that Grev is now an uncle. Clancy uncovers a Trevora-worshipping cult of night hags in their hometown, sapping the life force from unsuspecting people. After driving them out, Clancy was hailed as a local hero, much to their parents' pride. Remus completed his redemption arc by facing down and renouncing Cthulhu himself, while the old Squidhead was possessing a kraken, becoming worthy of being deemed the Death Goddess's champion. Tobias returns to the old ritual site and, with aid of the party, faced down the Lich who tried to kill him as a child. A Lich with the powers of a phoenix, but ultimately the team proved triumphant, and Tobias earned the rank of Archmagi. Bluford stayed true to his vow and returned to free his captive family, culminating in a final duel in the Feywild against a wild magic mutated Neophyllid. Ralph adapted to become a half-dragon hero, adopting an orphaned bronze dragon egg in the process, and Cain got the great fights he always craved, challenging Mithras himself. Eventually, rumors of a Draco Lich making moves around the continent reached them. Believing it is likely Flora, the team geared up to gather allies in the form of the strongest dragons on the continent, the 8 Kings. The Metallic Kings, Daedalus the Trickster Architect, Cephelia the Winter Queen, Tavrith the Thunderer, and Tamarin the Eternal Blaze, copper, silver, bronze, and gold dragons, respectively, were rather easy to convince, as Tobias was married to Cephelia during a drunken night, A surprisingly functional relationship formed on another adventure, and they allowed them to view their memories, but they had to prove themselves to the chromatic dragons. Aslan, the Black Death, was a ruthless, arrogant, and cunning black dragon who desired the party's relics and challenged them for the relics in their possession. However, Aslan was defeated despite his attempted trickery during their bout. Humbled, he offered them a reward from his treasury, the Deck of Many Things. He also blood-adopted Remus as his son, granting him a sorceress origin. Enviel the Frost Warden was considered the strongest dragon in terms of natural strength, but was equally lazy. Flora manipulated him into battling the party, resulting in a near TPK due to his frigid ice armor granting Enviel a near impassable defense. After defeating him, he grants them his allegiance and reveals Flora stole a powerful artifact from his hoard, a chroma key, a fragment of Tiamat's power, and each chromatic dragon possessed one of the 5. Syndra, the Bladestorm, was an honorable blue dragon who simply requested the party spar with her in exchange for help. The fact they bribed her with a bunch of weapons, something she likes to hoard, also helped. And finally, Seraphel, the Dread Emperor, a truly ancient red dragon who had mastered magics not even heard of in the current era. Imbuing his flames with an anti-magic effect, he was the toughest battle the party ever faced up to that point. And while his allegiance was secured, it was too late. Flora had stolen the chroma keys from each dragon and had added the power of Tiamat to her own. Alongside the 8 kings, the party marched to war, confronting Flora in her personal demiplane base. The battle against Flora's army of undead was grueling for everyone, but with the aid of the kings, she was eventually felled. Azrael arrived in his nightmarish glory to deal the final blow himself by destroying her phylactery, claiming he had no use for weaklings. He then openly invited the party to face him in his lair on the astral plane. The party each received a boon from the dragons that granted them new abilities as a reward for their efforts, and after some further adventures, they returned to the northern city of Albermorn at Shiro's behest. After arriving, he asks the team to do a final thing for him. He only has the power to send one group to the astral plane, so he proposes a citywide bout between the party and Salvation's remaining members. After battling their way through Salvation's relic wielders, the team confront Shiro himself, discovering his high priest status rendered him impervious to the relic's effects. After a long, grueling fight, the party was victorious, and Salvation offered the party the relics they had gathered as a final boost, the party being about level 20 at this point. The transport spell goes haywire through Azrael's interference, and the party is split across multiple worlds, forced to confront old foes once more. Clancy battles an evil general in Malbolge Colosseum. Grev confronted Falura once more upon the Bifrost as Asgard burned. Tobias dueled Alistair on the shore of the frigid lake Costis for a chance of revenge for his friend. Remus faced down his older brother, still a devout Cthulhu follower even in death, on the plane of water. Blue once again battled the Mind Flayer in the Feywilds. Upon the chaotic fields of Limbo, Ralph battled a zombie dragon, the mother of his adopted dragon daughter who believed he was her killer, and Cain battled a fallen frost giant rival of his on the fields of Pandemonium. After beating their individual opponents, they are reunited on the astral plane. Through windows they can see worlds dying of the blight. Azrael gave them one last chance to surrender before the final battle began. Azrael used his relic copies to draw upon the powers of every shattered god, making him an incredibly powerful foe. But one ability truly left the team reeling. He showed them visions of futures that could have been where the party's members turned to the dark side. Merciless villains who massacred or enslaved people as they saw fit. These visions left them paralyzed in fear for a while, but eventually they overcame what could have been. In a final round, the team used their strongest spells and abilities to finally end Azrael and his plans. Returning to Fortin's Crossroads, the party are hailed as heroes. After a celebratory night of partying and recovering, the team agree to work with Salvation to rebuild the continent's kingdoms as a side effect of having a relic rendered the wielders immortal unless directly killed. Over the next 50 years, the team was successful in rebuilding various settlements and kingdoms. Grev took his rightful place as king of the fire giants in their stronghold of Ashvalheim, eventually starting a family. Clancy chose to remain in Fortin's Crossroads, taking the role of a friendly grandparent to the local children, telling tall tales of our adventures to the next generations of adventurers. Tobias went on to become a teacher in one of the revived kingdoms, living a quiet life with his wife. Remus became a new high priest of the Shattered Gods and royal advisor to one of the world's new rulers. Blue founded a circus before seemingly vanishing into the wilds years later, occasionally popping up for a few days. Ralph traveled the multiple planes of reality alongside his adopted daughter, continuing his quest to learn as much as he could. And Kane, like Tobias, took on the role of a teacher, though he preferred a little action in his life and never left the adventuring profession. Now, over 100 years later, with new kingdoms and old threats, it's up to the next generation to protect the world. The sequel campaign had begun, kicking off in a quaint little fishing village called Fortin's Crossroads. There were a lot more adventures this lovable crew had under other DMs, and I'd be more than happy to regale you wonderful people with those tales as well, should you want them. Until then, my friends, may your rolls be high and your 20s forever natural. Thank you for joining us to the very end of the epic saga known as Through Nightmares, We March On. And I hope that you continue to march on as well. I know that I do. If you would like to share your epic with us, please do so on our official subreddit, r/MrRipper. And if you want your story featured live, you may wish to join us on Sundays over at twitch.tv/MrRipperStream at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. GMT. I also make TikToks. You can find me over on TikTok at Dave Makes Noises. May whatever nightmares that you are presently marching on through be short-lived from here, and may you gracefully and dutifully march on into your most fulfilled and joyous state of being. We love you here at Rip Daddy's house. Please sub for Nat 20s. Ding that dong if you want to be on the early squad. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.